Spring is in the air. In this video, I have 4 comfort foods for a rainy spring, including corned beef and a fun tea that is green but is not green tea. Speaking of green, since this video is being published on St. Patrick's Day, I've got a fun twist. All 4 of the comfort foods are Irish and have green. I'll show you a fun St. Patrick's Day unit study for the kids. I also have a relatively easy, fun centerpiece idea that I did with my youngest children that they thoroughly enjoyed. Since we're doing all things green today, I thought we'd talk a little bit about envy. It was a very scathing comment. The person was very clearly envious. I think what I have to share is going to help anybody that is struggling with this negative emotion to overcome it. I recently did a Bible study on this and just learned so much, and so I'm excited to share what I learned with you. At the very end, I will have a small chapter on homesteading and homesteading with animals. It will be at the end because I know not everybody is into that, but it has to do with something really important you need to do for your homestead animals during rainy seasons. In last week's video, I started brining my corned beef. I showed you guys how to do that a little bit, but mostly I gave you the recipe that I've used all of these years. It's not my recipe, so I didn't want to take credit for it. But I did link to it, and I will link to it again down below in the description box. I've tried a variety of recipes, and the one I'm sharing is definitely our favorite. I started brining our corned beef last week and it is now ready to cook. I like to brine mine for about 7 days. After 7 days, it's time to rinse the corned beef, and we just rinse it under cold water. It's supposed to be simmered in a stock pot for like 2 to 3 hours. My stock pot is full of beans right now, so I am going to do mine in this roasting pan. It's stainless steel, so it should work just fine. In my recipe, it says to bring everything to a simmer with some select spices and herbs. We've got peppercorns, mustard seeds, whole cloves, and allspice. And it would be better if I had like whole allspice cloves, but I don't have any. I just have the powder, so that's what we're going to use. And then, of course, some bay leaf. Definitely don't add salt. This has been brining in a salt and vinegar water solution, and if you add salt, you won't be able to eat it. It'll be way too salty. I'm going to bring all of this to a boil in my roasting pan, and after that, I'm going to set it over on my wood cook stove. And then I'm going to let it very slowly roast in my wood cook stove. The wood cook stove oven doesn't get terribly hot. Usually stays around 200 degrees, so I think that's going to be the perfect temperature to cook this at. We're going to come back around and finish off that corned beef in just a moment, but first I want to show you the centerpiece the younger kids and I made together. It was so affordable. I am not a crafty person at all. But I wanted to do some special centerpiece, and of course I wanted the theme to be green, so I thought about it and realized one of our towns just got a Dollar General store. So I found moss, which I absolutely love. All things moss are just beautiful. And then I saw these little pots for pots of gold and the gold coins. And of course, as I started to pull these out of the bags, the 2 youngest children came running over. They wanted to know if they could help, and of course I said yes. We had so much fun together making this special centerpiece. The eggs in the egg basket are a combination of Starlight Green Egger and Moss Eggers. And there we have it. It's a super simple centerpiece, as you can see, but it was special to make, simple, and extremely affordable. let's go back to that corned beef. As you can tell, this video was filmed on different days. Well, the corned beef is cooking. I'm going to get the rest of the ingredients ready, and I'm going to drop some helpers for this. I called some of the kids in, and we got all of the potatoes done in about 5 minutes compared to like 30, which is what it would have taken me. I overcooked the beef just a little bit. I kind of forgot about it. I should have added these potatoes probably an hour to 2 hours sooner. I didn't expect the corned beef to cook as fast as it did. Low and slow is always the best method for beef or brisket. It still was delicious. I finished cooking it on top of the stove. I just put the beef on the top. You want to add the potatoes and carrots and onions maybe about 30 minutes before serving and let it finish cooking that way. About 15 to 20 minutes before serving, you add the cabbage. It was funny though, after I found out that the beef was already done before I put the vegetables in, over half the kids were standing there and asking if they could have some already. So we actually dug into the beef. Before everything else was done, the kids just couldn't wait. They were so excited. It was a good thing I did extra beef. So the kids snacked on some beef, and then we added the rest of the vegetables, and then everybody devoured this. It was mostly gone on day 1. We had just a little bit left over for day 2. I kid you not, I only got 1 small plate from all of this because it disappeared so quickly. I thought that this would make enough for maybe like 2 or 3 meals for the family. It actually only made enough for 1 meal, a lunch, and then it was pretty much gone. Apparently, my kids all have the same affinity for corned beef as their mama. We did serve these with some rolls. I have the rolls recipe on my website. I will link to these in the description below for you. I want to take a break and show you the St. Patrick's Day lab book unit study that we got from Gather Round Homeschool. I highly recommend it. They have a free sample. My kids loved it. Of course, the older kids were too old to do it, so we only did it with the 3 youngest kids. They had so much fun. I did too. I will say that if you do get it, make sure you look over all the pages first, because there were a lot of additional pages that didn't seem like they needed to be there. Just a bunch of blank pages. So be sure to glance it over and just print the pages that you are going to use and want. I had a horrible comment a while back. It was a very scathing comment. The person was very clearly envious of the work that I'm doing here and didn't think I had a right to share. They assumed I was much younger than I was. So the comment was completely scathing from start to finish. Normally I don't read. When I see a comment is coming through and it's really mean, I normally just delete, goodbye. You don't belong here. You don't need me, so go away. This one, for some reason, I read. They went on for quite some time because of what I share here. And it was just all the way down the line. They went through. It was almost like they used AI to roast me or something. Because, I mean, it was just like, wow, bam, 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 bam. And it's funny how that one comment can get to a person. I'm sorry, my husband's outside on the tractor right now. But anyways, it's funny how a comment like that can really hurt, especially when the majority of comments that come in are, I want to say 1 out of 100, or maybe 2 out of, no, because I have the statistics. It's like 1 out of 100 or less mean, negative, hateful comments. And it's funny how that one mean comment can just ow, that is just totally uncalled for. You don't know me at all. But one thing I want to say is that it really makes the contrasting comments mean more. When you get a mean comment like that from somebody who doesn't think you have a right to a voice. I noticed a while back that 1/3 of my audience here are women in the, let's see, was it 50 to 65 range, which was surprising. Really surprising. I guess I never thought that women in that age range would see what I'm doing here as something that they would find very useful, because I would have figured people in that age range wouldn't need a channel like this. Those of you out there in the older age range that leave the comments that you do, encouraging me to keep doing the work that I'm doing here and saying that I actually encourage you, I mean, I that's shocking to me. It's shocking. I didn't expect that would result from my work here, but it's touching to know that the Lord's using me to encourage more than just the young people. So the comments that come through, some of you that comment are even in the 70s age range and thanking me for the work. But I just want you to know that when you guys encourage me and tell me that you're finding value here and appreciate the work that I'm doing, it really makes the comments from you much more special when you contrast it with the mean rare one that comes through. Anyways, thank you guys. Thank you for everybody who is leaving the encouraging comments. It means so much. Thank you. We're going to talk more about envy in a few moments and how I believe it blocks us from the Lord's blessing. First, I want to show you the green tea that is not actual green tea like we think of. This is a spirulina. I've been doing a little bit of research on spirulina. I used to know this and completely forgot. It has a lot of amino acids in it. I have trouble getting the amount of protein that I'm supposed to eat in a day, so I'm hoping that this helps a little bit maybe. I'm not sure if it's actually supposed to help with that, but if it's packed with amino acids, I'm thinking it should. For some reason, it still tastes like a wet dog to me. Not that I've ever tasted a wet dog. That's what spirulina tastes like. It reminds me of the smell of a wet dog. You don't pick that up? I think I'll call this one wet dog tea. Speaking of which, have you guys got my tea book yet? I have an herbal tea book with 17 different tea recipes for you. Just to let you know, spirulina is not my favorite, but the lemon juice completely improves it and makes it much, much better. I pretty much never film on a Sunday, and I rarely get dressed up like this on a Sunday, but I wanted to make this big, beautiful Irish dinner for my husband and family, and of course he's only home for sure on the weekends, so it was the only day for me to make this when he was going to be able to enjoy it. So I decided to get fancied up and do a nice big traditional Sunday dinner. If you would like to know what our typical Sundays are like though, leave a comment below and let me know, and I will do a video on how we like to roll on Sundays normally. In these next scenes, I'm going to make some garlic spinach bread because it's green and it's delicious, and I've been making it for a lot of years. I'm also going to make a new dish we discovered, bacon and cabbage. Oh my Lord, was it ever amazing. I did make a mistake. I only used one cabbage. I probably should have used 4. That is how good it was. And I'm also going to be making some Irish stew. All right, here's how this is going to go. I'm going to talk about the recipe, but I'm also going to be talking about envy. So we're going to go back and forth over these next clips. The first thing you saw me doing was cutting up a ton of garlic because all 3 of these recipes call for garlic. My garlic spinach bread takes a whole head of garlic, and then the other recipes took another like half a head at least. Right now I'm thawing out the spinach for the spinach bread. I've been making this bread since I was a teenager, so I just counted and it's been 30 years that I've been making this bread, but I didn't learn how to make it sourdough. I think I've made it sourdough before, but I'm not sure. Pretty sure I did. That was before I knew very much about sourdough. So this is the first time I'm making it where I know enough about sourdough that I know it's going to turn out really well. I will put the recipe on my blog for you. We used to have an ultra hippie health food store in our town called the Co-op. There was a bakery in the back, and they would always have the absolute best food. And all through my childhood and into my youth, it was my favorite place to go. The smells coming from the Co-op were just lovely. And this bread is one of the smells that would often come from the Co-op. So we have a cup of spinach, a whole chopped up head of garlic, a cup of honey, about a quarter of a cup of olive oil, a cup of sourdough starter, a cup of warm water, and about 5 cups of flour. And as I'm making this, we'll begin the talk on envy. Have you ever had a situation where there was something you really, really wanted and you prayed for and you desired so badly, and no matter how long you prayed or longed for it, it didn't happen, but it did happen for people around you? What is the feeling that you are inclined to feel next? Is it joy for the person that the good thing that you had prayed for yourself but saw go to somebody else? Is it joy you feel for them? If it is, I would venture to say you are very strong in the Lord. For the majority of people, they don't feel joy. They feel pain and fear. I used to think that I didn't have a problem with envy until I realized that I had a problem with comparison. And I didn't think that I had a problem with comparing either until one day I realized that I was and can be a chronic comparer. And sadly, the way that my brain goes about comparing always leaves me feeling like a failure, like I have come up short. Somebody says, congratulations, or wow, you did a good job. And in my mind, it's like, well, yeah, but compared to this, what I've done is nothing. And compared to that over there, I'm a failure. Can you relate? Well, lately, I have been coming to the realization that comparison and envy and jealousy are very closely connected. When comparison starts to happen, you either feel like you are coming out on top, or you feel like you are coming out on the bottom. And if you feel like you're coming out behind or on the bottom, then the trap of jealousy and envy becomes a legit temptation. I mean, let's face it, we would not be jealous or envious ever if we had not first compared ourselves with somebody else or something else. Now, here's something interesting about comparison that I only recently learned. Envy, jealousy, and comparison all stem from insecurity. So the way that I learned this is when I realized that I have a severe problem with comparing, and it is keeping me from enjoying life and seeing just exactly how blessed I am, is I went to the YouVersion app and I looked for all of the plans on comparison. I've done 2 so far and they're both amazing. One is the Comparison Trap. I think it's by North Point Church. And the other one that I really, really love is by Nona Jones, and it's called Killing Comparison. One of the things that I really loved that Nona pointed out in day 1 of her Killing Comparison plan is that comparison stems from insecurity. And the insecurity usually comes from words that were spoken over us. She talked about how there is power in words. If we have had horrible things said to us, insults, and been chronically criticized, especially as a child or youth, these words can have a way of following us into our adulthood and through our life without us even realizing it. So one of the things that Nona encourages people struggling with comparison, and that I would add to it to say is people struggling with jealousy as well, is to go back. If we're insecure about something, why? When did it start? We will continue this talk, but let me just tell you what's happening in these scenes. I'm making the Irish stew now. I went to make the Irish stew recipe that came with our unit study on St. Patrick's Day from Gather Round Homeschool, and it's basically the same recipe that I have always made. It's got one extra ingredient that I don't always put in my stew, and that's Worcestershire sauce. That's it. So I've been making Irish stew all my life and didn't know it. Okay. I decided to brown the beef, which doesn't call for in the recipe. I don't know that browning the beef is Irish. I think it's more of a French thing, but I know that it'll be better this way. So we're going to do it this way. I normally never use the Instant Pot for stew for one simple reason. I have a smaller Instapot and a larger family, and it only makes enough stew for us for maybe one meal. And I like to make a large pot of stew to last like 3 days or 4 days, because we even have stew on pasta. Anyways, I'm going to use this today because I want it to get done. With my stew, one of the big top secret things that I do is I make it the day before and let it kind of marinate in the fridge overnight after it's all made. And of course, that makes the stew so much more flavorful. But I don't have time to do that today. So I'm going to be using the Instant Pot, and that will help up the flavor. Here's a little spread of all of the vegetables going into the stew. We have garlic, potatoes, carrots, thyme, onions, tomato, bay leaf, and beef broth. The day is really getting away from me too. Kids are all kind of relaxing and having a good time. So I asked them, hey, you guys want to help me peel these potatoes and carrots so we can get it done quick? And of course they didn't mind. We were all just having kind of a relaxing day. We were watching fun Irish shows. Have you guys ever seen Grow, Cook, Eat? It's a great educational gardening show. And then of course we were watching fun shows too, like Leap Year. I don't know what it is about that movie, but I just get a kick out of that movie every time I see it, and I laugh so hard. It is such a fun movie and a beautiful movie too, with all the Irish scenery. As I have been going through my own journey in killing comparison, one of the verses that helps me so much is Jeremiah 1:5. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. I love this verse so much because it goes back. It goes way back. You can't go further back than before you were born. So no matter who has said what or tried to proclaim what over you or me, it doesn't matter. Before that, God picked us. Before the enemy even saw us coming. Before he used whoever he used to mistreat us or insult us or harm us, God spoke over us. Those of us that are chosen by God and that are his children were claimed before the enemy tried to curse us and take us down and shut us up. Not only that, but in Jeremiah 29:11, it says that God has a plan for us. The verse reads, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." So if you struggle with feelings of comparison or jealousy or envy, here's what I want you to do. I want you to write these verses that I gave you today. I will put them down below in the description box. I will put them in the comments as well. I want you to copy those verses and put them on a post-it note and put them in a place where you're going to see them every single day. Every time you're tempted to compare, if you can catch yourself and read those verses, or maybe before. And when you're feeling like that twinge of jealousy, remember that it's because you are worried that God has forgotten you. You're worried he's forgotten your needs. You're insecure. You're worried that God doesn't love you as much as he loves somebody else. And that is simply not the truth. The truth is, somewhere along the way, you developed a very critical inner voice that is lying to you and is abusing you. And you have got to replace it with the truth. I have more verses with the truth coming up in just a moment. But this is what's going into the cabbage and bacon. As mentioned, this is delectable. It's just cabbage, vinegar, onions, bacon, and celery salt. It's super easy to make, and like I said, my only mistake was not making enough. I don't have this on my website because it's an Irish recipe. You can look it up. It's probably on a million websites already. But honestly, I'm not sure you need a recipe. You can't really mess it up. I guess you could if you add too much vinegar. The recipe only called for a tablespoon of vinegar. I would definitely use white wine vinegar. I used apple cider, and I think white wine would have been just a little bit better. Here is another verse that I want you to write down, and I'll put it below too. Here's the verse, Romans 8:39. Neither height nor depth nor anything else in all creation will be able to separate us from the love of God that is in Christ Jesus our Lord. Here is another one, Psalms 139:13 through 16. For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful, and I know that full well. These are the verses to remember. They're the verses to read daily and remind yourself of when you're feeling those twinges of insecurity, when you're comparing yourself and feeling like you're never going to measure up. The Lord is never going to bless you the way that He's blessed others around you. See, it's not about that. It's about believing in the goodness of God and that He has our best interests at heart and that He knows what we need. He knows what is best for us. And it's in believing that His timing is perfect and resting in that. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge Him, and He shall direct thy paths. So our job is to believe in God's goodness for us, and keep trusting.
Here comes the little dude. You are a cute little dude. Well, hello. Hi. Hello there.
If you can't tell, I'm quite fond of our animals. Having a farm has been one of my lifelong dreams. It took 25 years to make happen. From the time I first started having that dream, it was definitely worth the wait. I'm savoring every single moment. All right, since spring is on the way, it's practically here, or when you're watching this, it may already be here. We need to talk about parasites and livestock. When it starts to get into the rainy season, this can create breeding grounds for parasites in stalls and in your farm lots. Start checking your animals for parasites. I am actually getting ready to put a little class I did with my kids on how to check animals for parasites. I'll put that on Patreon. I will also put on Patreon what I use for a dewormer. So if you're into homesteading, definitely go over to Patreon and check my Patreon out for all kinds of homestead goodness.